Are you killing your sales and business growth from LinkedIn without even knowing it? Trust me, you probably are, because hundreds of entrepreneurs sent me their profiles for an audit of their accounts. And after going through them, I spotted the same exact expensive mistakes again and again and again. So today I'll be breaking down 3 real-life examples of people's LinkedIn accounts who are perfect cases for what not to do. I'll show you exactly what they're doing wrong and the simple fixes they need to make. The first account we're going to take a look at is Adrian Alfieri. He's a good friend of mine, runs a content agency as well called Verbatim. They're focused on more long-form content and case studies. He asked me to take a look at his LinkedIn profile and give my thoughts on what I would do better. The first thing I'm noticing here is there's just not enough consistency. So the last post, and I'm looking at this today, is from 6 days ago, and then 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it looks like about 3 weeks ago was the last time he was consistent on the platform. Then he's kind of slowed down from there. So the simple, easiest fix I would make to the account right now is start posting more consistently. For you, I'd recommend posting anywhere from 3 to 7 times per week. My usual recommended cadence is 5 times per week, so daily, Monday through Friday. If you feel comfortable with creating content and you're just a lot more skilled, you can go up to 7. That's also okay. And if I look at my LinkedIn optimization checklist, one of the points here, are you posting 3 to 7 times per week? If that's not the case, that's one of the easiest things you could do to get more impressions and ultimately get more leads from the platform. The second shift I would make to Adrian's content is not necessarily getting rid of the stuff he is posting, like these hiring opportunities. He does these case studies or these breakdowns of popular companies who have just raised funding and breaking down what they're doing well with content. So that's a good repeatable content format. What I would do is vary the content formats a bit. So layer in some more new stuff, specifically middle and top of funnel content. You have a lot of bottom of funnel stuff like this case study here, some hiring content here that's very specific to the company, a lot of asks. And then we have this one repeatable content format where they break down companies who have announced funding and what they're doing well with content. I'd like to see some more variation there. And specifically, if we can tie in some more personal narratives, you'll see this as a theme throughout a lot of the accounts that I audit today. You want to tie personal narratives into your content, especially with AI flooding the feed with content. It becomes very difficult to stand out. And if you're only posting generic how-to content, you're going to have a tough time. So what I would do in Adrian's case is tie in some more personal narratives around his learnings from content strategy, also growing his agency. But even when you do listicle content, you want to use narratives and personal examples that can't be replicated by someone else using AI to make sure you have a content moat, and it just makes it more compelling. Specifically in the hooks, if I go back to this checklist, I have a tab for a hook writing checklist. And one of the levers that you could use that works really well is a narrative hook. So using a narrative or a story in those first few lines gets people interested. They want to see what happens next. And looking at Adrian's content right now, I just don't see a lot of narratives. You see a lot of this curation content and, again, hiring posts. It's not until a month ago where I see the first post that somewhat resembles a narrative or a story. The third recommendation I'd make for Adrian is to mix in some more IRL photos, some scrappier media. You look at a lot of the posts, there's this hiring graphic which is branded, and most of the content around Verbatim is branded. And then you see a lot of these curation posts use the funding graphic from the company itself. I kind of like that as a pattern interrupt, because typically when people see a funding announcement on LinkedIn, they stop scrolling. So I like the idea of using those funding graphics as a pattern interrupt to get them to read his post. But outside of those, there's not really a whole lot of scrappy in real life media. You see a lot of this branded stuff, which kind of gives people the impression of it being an ad. One of the media types that consistently performs best on LinkedIn is in real life photos. So from your day to day, if you go to an event, if I was to sit here at my desk and take a photo of myself working, it feels a little bit cringe and silly, but it tends to work really well. So one more simple shift I would make is include some scrappier photos. My recommendation for you watching this is make an effort to capture photos in your day-to-day. If you go to an event, make sure you got photos. If you're putting on like a happy hour or something, hire a photographer to come in and take photos. Those photos are going to make your content perform so much better. And again, if I go back to that optimization checklist, are 1 to 2 of those posts featuring video, IRL photos, or other media. If you're only posting text only, your content is at risk of falling flat. Although right now, as I'm recording this video, text only is performing quite well. You still want to mix in other media types, specifically scrappier media that doesn't look overly branded or like an advertisement. Okay, the second LinkedIn profile we're going to look at is Brian's. If you look at the profile setup itself, looks pretty solid. Profile picture's in a good spot. I like the header, very clearly communicates the value proposition. Win back, lost deals, very obvious value prop for someone in sales. And Brian's selling a SaaS product for people in sales and go to market. So very clearly communicates indicates why they should stick around. One fix or improvement that I'd like to see from Brian's profile, just to take advantage of the traffic that could come in through his LinkedIn content, is having some sort of featured link set up. We don't see any sort of featured link here. And if I go to my profile, you'll see that I've got this featured link set up with the obvious next step in the funnel. So for your featured link, you want to have it be directing the audience, directing the customer or prospect to the obvious next step in your funnel. So for you, it might be a book a demo page. For me, I have it to my newsletter and also to my software company, Bluecast. So if someone sees my LinkedIn content, they're interested, they can sign up to my newsletter. For Brian, what I'd recommend is having one of those featured links be a link that goes directly to a book a demo page. So if someone sees his content and is ready to book a demo, obviously we want to get people there as quickly as possible. The second featured link that I would recommend is some sort of lead magnet, right? Right now, there's not really an obvious next step. I think he does have this button set up. Even here, actually, this is actually somewhere, now that I'm seeing this, where I would 100% update this to go to the buyer experience website versus this contact information thing. Like, why have your email here, your LinkedIn profile? You're already on your LinkedIn profile. You want to give people the obvious next step. So make it easy for them to find your website and your book a demo page, which is not happening here, and a super easy thing that he can switch. Because think about it, all these people are going to land on his profile through his content, and then they have nowhere to go. Unless they DM him personally and say, hey, I want to book a demo, how do they get to the site? Like, how do they get to a page where they can book a demo with as little friction as possible? There's way too much friction right now, and it's costing him demos. And one pro tip here as you're setting up your featured link is treat that preview image like a YouTuber treats their thumbnail. You can customize this and make it specific to what you want. So for example, here I have this image for social files that says join 22,000 B2B marketers who read social files. Add to that social proof and it gets someone intrigued. So for example, you are watching this video on YouTube right now, something about the thumbnail got you to want to click. You could use the image on the featured links in the same way. Another example, write founder-led content faster. That's the preview image that goes to the link to my software company, Bluecast, which by the way, if you do want to write founder-led content faster, check it out. You see how it makes the value prop clear and gives someone a reason to click. You want to make it as frictionless as possible to get someone from your LinkedIn profile to a book a demo page or to your email list. And right now on Brian's page, that just doesn't exist, and that's a missed opportunity. And again, if you go to my LinkedIn optimization checklist in the profile setup tab, you'll see that I have this right here, just so you make sure you don't forget it. You want to have those featured links set up. Now, the second piece of advice that I would have for Brian's profile is to go a bit broader on the sales and go-to-market topics. Right now, he keeps it pretty specific. Even on the middle of funnel of content, it keeps it pretty specific to the win-loss stuff, which is very specific to the value proposition of his company. So you want that content in the mix. But when you're too niche like this, you run the risk of not getting enough impression. And if Brian were in a case where he wants to get more traffic from LinkedIn, get in front of more people, he doesn't need to go so broad that he's just posting controversial takes for the sake of it and trying to maximize distribution at all costs on LinkedIn. That doesn't help you either. But there is a sweet spot where, of course, you want to be specific and be known well to the right audience, but you also don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and not get as much distribution as you can for your product. So for example, these two posts are great and they should be in the content mix and they're very specific to the product and what Brian sells, but they are so specific that they're just not going to get a whole lot of traction on LinkedIn. The total addressable audience for that post is just not that large. So like, here's an example of a post that I think does this well. And if you notice, it got a bit higher engagement than average. And this speaks to more of a broader sales point. So like the best reps care about their long-term reputation. It's not so specific to the win-loss stuff, but it's still specific to the ICP that Brian's trying to target. And notice how I just got a little bit more engagement. So if your posts are not getting as much engagement as you'd like, but the content itself is sound and valuable, you're likely going too niche. I personally ran into this problem a lot on Instagram, so kind of different platform than LinkedIn, but same principle applies here. On LinkedIn, my content's very specific to B2B SaaS and tech founders. When I tried to take that same content and post it on Instagram, it didn't hit because it's just so specific that only a certain amount of people are going to care about it, which is fine. But if I'm trying to grow my audience on the platform, I need to strike a balance between content that's specific to my audience, but also content that enough people care about that it's going to get actual engagement. The third thing I noticed on Brian's profile is not spending enough time and effort on outbound engagement. So the posts themselves are actually quite sound. The fundamentals are there. He's posting consistently. The hooks are pretty dialed in. But when I looked at his commenting and outbound engagement, it was pretty much non-existent. You see a few things on his own post here. There's one from a day ago, 2 days ago, another one 2 days ago, 5 days ago, a week ago. So that's 5 comments over the entire week, some of which are on his own content. I'd recommend at least 10 of those per day I know it sounds like a lot, but you can crank through these in about 20 minutes or so. And you don't want to spend hours and hours and hours on LinkedIn every single day. You're a founder, you have to run a company. That's a waste of your time. But a lot of times founders will post on LinkedIn. They're posting consistently every single day for months, and they're wondering why their account isn't getting traction. Remember, social media is social for a reason. You want to be commenting and doing that outbound engagement on other accounts. One, because those comments serve as a billboard for your own profile, for your own product in the comment section of that post. Even at this point, LinkedIn, if I go to my own comments here, shows you how many impressions your comments get. I can actually see how many impressions I get. I mean, 53 is not a whole lot, but those add up over time. And I've seen several examples of impressions on posts that get a ton of traction and get just as many impressions, if not more impressions than a native post on their own. So if you're not doing that outbound engagement, you're fumbling. By the way, I've shown this LinkedIn optimization checklist on screen a few times. Now, if you want access to this exact template that you could use when you set up your account, plan your content strategy, and just make sure you're on the right track, I'll drop a link to the template for free in the description down below. So if you want to grow on LinkedIn and get leads from the platform, I'd highly suggest checking it out. It'll make sure you're in a great spot to take full advantage of the platform going forward. The third profile we'll look at today is from Connor Gross. He runs Constant Hire. It's a recruiting firm, and there are a few simple things we could do to make his LinkedIn content more effective. The first thing is I want to look at the featured links section. Connor does have these set up, but I'd like to see these tweaked a bit. Number one, I'd want to have one of these links directly go to a book a call or book a demo page. Right now, none of these really give the profile visitor an obvious next step. Some of these are good content, right? So this is a good post on Connor's hiring philosophy. It's a good middle of funnel piece of content, but not really an obvious next step here. This is some good social proof. So I actually like this example. I was going to suggest doing a case study, looking deeper. This is sort of a case study post. So I could actually see him leaving this one in. And then I don't hate this one either because it does show social proof that he knows how to build an e-commerce company, which Constant Hire mainly helps recruit for e-commerce companies. So by showing that he was able to build and sell a company in that category, it does inspire trust in his ideal audience. So actually I'm okay with leaving this one there, but I would like to see more of a direct call to action that could help move that profile visitor down the funnel. So whether it's a book a call page, which is very direct response, or if you want to go to an email list, like I mentioned earlier, I have mine, go to my Social Files newsletter. That could be another play. Now, looking at the content itself, the performance is quite volatile, right? Like you have some posts like this. This is only an hour old, but it only has 2 likes, right? Like not amazing. You have this post, which overperformed relative to average. Now, 27 likes doesn't sound like a lot, and that's not too crazy. But if we look at the average engagement on the content, you'll see that this actually overperformed. So I'll come back to that in a second. But you just noticed how there is a bit of volatility in the content performance itself. So what I would be doing if I was Connor is looking at which formats and which content types seem to perform best. If I wanted to maximize how quickly I was growing on LinkedIn and getting leads from the platform, I'd be looking at what are the commonalities in the content that performs above average. So one example here that I'd recommend that he implement is this hiring roundup post for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a very obvious tie-in to the agency. So he could actually plug his own open roles in these hiring roundup posts. I wouldn't just plug roles that Constant Hire is recruiting for, by the way. I'd do a mix of open roles at companies that are actually working with Constant Hire and then also open roles at hot companies that can get attention and get traction on LinkedIn. But this is a very easy, repeatable format. If I was Connor, I'd be doing this at least once a week, like a weekly hiring roundup or open roles in e-commerce. One tweak I might make to this style of post, it's more of a curation post, is including some tags in here. I don't know if you need to tag every single brand or every single person you mention in the content, but if you tag the brand or the team member behind the brand, they might engage, which will also amplify the performance of the content. But the main takeaway here is have a repeatable content format that you know is going to perform well. This performed above baseline, and it's very repeatable. You can do this every single week. So what's that format for you? The third area is dialing in the hooks a bit more. If you look at the hooks, they're pretty fundamentally sound. They're not inherently bad, but they could just be so much better. A lot of times I find that when people are writing LinkedIn hooks that are okay, but not really hitting as well, they only use 1, maybe 2 levers in the hook. So what I mean by that is if I look at my LinkedIn checklist and go to the banger hook checklist, you'll notice there are a number of different levers that we could use in the hooks to make them as compelling as possible. So negativity bias, specific numbers, a narrative hook, listicles, credibility jacking, trend jacking, frameworks and playbooks, and also social proof. And I don't even think this is fully exhaustive, but I tried to keep it simple for ease of implementation. The best hooks on LinkedIn and across social platforms really use a combination of these levers. A lot of people will pick one and only use that one for the post, and they might only do a hot take in the post, but that's it. And that's better than nothing. It's an okay hook, but you notice a lot of the hooks that are the most viral combine 2 to 4 of these levers. So for example, if we look at this hook, can you really use AI to hire better candidates? Companies like Ridge are using AI LLMs to reduce their time to hire. You have a bit of social proof there with the Ridge mention, but other than that, there's not a whole lot. So in addition to that credibility jacking and social proof with Ridge, I might implement some negativity bias. I might implement some specific numbers. Notice how there's only one of those levers in there, and the post does fine, but it could do so much better if that hook was stronger. Again, kind of same thing here. Want the secrets to operating a $200+ million consumer brand. You have a specific number there, and I guess a little bit of social proof, but you get this cutoff here. Again, if this Ridge mention was in the hook before it got cut off, you would have 2 levers, but you only have one because that Ridge mention got cut off by the see more button. Again, just notice how the hooks aren't inherently bad, but they can be made stronger by making them a bit more dense, I like to call it. So you want to have at least 2 to 4 hook levers in every hook that you publish. If you're not doing that, you're just not giving yourself the best possible chance to succeed. One person who does this really well, and I want to show you an example of stuffing hook levers into hooks that is done exceptionally well, is Adam Robinson. Look at this post. Most marketers would say I'm an idiot, but I don't believe in attribution. It forces you to focus on the wrong things. Here are 5 reasons why I don't measure any marketing activity I spend time on. So you have 2, maybe 3 levers in this one hook alone. You have negativity bias. Most marketers would say I'm an idiot. That's clear negativity bias. You have a listicle, so here's 5 reasons why. It creates an open loop that someone wants to keep reading. And then you have a bit of a narrative. I don't know if I could go so far as to classify this as a narrative hook, but he talks about why I don't measure any marketing activity I spend time on. So it's kind of tying into a personal experience. And we can look at this one breaking down the difference between Koala and Unify, 2 SaaS companies in the go-to-market space. This is a trend jacking hook because it's speaking on a current event. Both Koala shut down, and then also Unify raised a Series B in that same week. This post dropped in that same week as both of those events happened. So trend jacking. You also have credibility jacking because those are both relevant companies in Adam's category. You have specific numbers, and you have negativity bias because it's talking about how one company shut down, which obviously is a very negative experience, right? So 4 levers alone I count in that hook, and it's no surprise that post did well. So if your hooks are falling flat and your content is okay, but you're wondering why it's not doing as well as you think it should, your hooks probably just aren't as dialed in. So going back to Connor's account, if I was going to consult on his profile and actually write content for him, I put a lot more time into those hooks to make sure they're as sharp and as compelling as possible. Now, as you can see from this video, it's actually pretty easy to clean up your account and make more sales from LinkedIn right away. It doesn't take a whole lot of complicated strategy. But on top of that, I've also noticed there are 5 more things that make it as easy as possible to grow on LinkedIn and get more sales. So click here to watch the next video where I walk you through the 5 trends I'm seeing on the platform right now that are making it easier to grow and scale your business and get more impressions, followers, and ultimately more sales from LinkedIn. It doesn't matter if you're a complete beginner, intermediate, or killing it on LinkedIn already. I'll see you over there.